Siman Nun Aleph, haGeula. V'hinei, and he's talking about the hatzlacha of the Avodah Zarah in the old days, the kings that made themselves into a worshipped object, and the success that they had, and then comparing that with today, where the Zionists are successful and people want to be misdabek with the mazel of the Zionists. He says, "V'hinei af shehitzlichu harbe." Even though the Zionists were very successful in our time, especially with the war that they just had in '67, mikol makom adayin lo higiu la'atzlachas Nebuchadnezzar uParoi. They still haven't reached the level of Nebuchadnezzar and Paroi. Shemachu al kol oilam kulei, because they controlled the whole world. The Zionists only control their country. V'gam heim lo ibaru la'atzlacha zu b'pam achas. And the Zionists, the Nebuchadnezzar and Paroi didn't reach that level all at once. It took them time. Elohayu moisifin v'holchim. They were doing it slowly. B'chol pam yoiser. Every time they conquered another country. Berum hatzlachasam, with their powerful success. B'koyach hasamach mem. With the power of the samach mem, lavoi lidei avodah zarah rachmana litzlan. They came to the point where they were worshipped. So the Zionists haven't gotten there yet, but he says, "V'lazeh ani mafached mo'od." I'm very afraid. Mi yodea. Who knows? Im lo yasu oid milchamos. Maybe the Zionists will launch even more wars. Now that they got a bunch of land, right, in the 6-Day War, maybe they're going to say, let's get some more. Lo yasu oid milchamos v'atzlachas shoynos, and other successes. L'naso says Yisrael b'emunah. You have to remember, the Rebbe is leaving over his Das Torah now. This is his last sefer that he wrote, and he's leaving over a Das Torah. As his own lashon, he said that people tried to dissuade him from writing the sefer in the Psicha over here, and Rabbi Yasser Ashkenazi tells, and he said Mevert nish younger. He said, if I don't do it now, I'm not getting any younger. So I want to leave over a Das Torah for the Doyers. So he said, I'm not always going to be around here to tell you how to think about the Zionists. So I'm telling you now, even if later on they're even more matzliach than they were in the 67 war, right? And they do more things. To test the faith of the Jewish people. The wicked are like the sea, and they can't be still. They're constantly on the move. They can't be quiet. And it happened before already that they started a war in the Sinai campaign of 56. They started a war for no reason. So we can't imagine what they'll come up with next. With their bad, approach to life, approach to the Jewish people. Gemara says, if all the seas would be ink, and all the reeds would be pens, and all the heavens would be parchment, and all people would be scribes, they would not be able to write down the mind of the government. So Gemara says, what's the pasuk that proves this? It says the heavens for height, the eretz lo'omek, and the earth is deep. V'leiv malachim ein cheker, but the heart of a king, there can be no understanding of it or exploring of it. So what's the problem here? Why can't we understand the heart of a king? Pirish Rashi Zal, Rashi on the Gemara says, Chalal shel reshus oimek libam, the depth of the heart of the leader. Shehut sarach liyos loy leiv. He has to have a heart, meaning he has to have a very big mind, lekama medinos, to understand all his countries that he rules over, ulekama milchamos, all the wars that he's waging, and to keep track of all that stuff. He has to have a big mind. Yuyin Sham. Ukvar arachti bozeh b'sifri vayol Moshe. Maim Rebbe Sim and Kuf Nundal. In the Rebbe's other sefer, Vayol Moshe, he already spoke about this question. The question is, she'ena muvan. The question is, l'choira shaharei soif kol elu amasim nasim al yidei b'nei adam. That the king has a cabinet, right? He has people helping him. The king doesn't do it all by himself. Today, the president has like hundreds of people in his cabinet. There's a Congress, there's everything, right? So what does it mean? There's a Pentagon. What does it mean that the king is doing everything? You can't understand the mind of a king. He says, they're part of the sarim of the kingdom. They're the assistants to the kingdom. And all decisions are made by people who are very limited in their abilities. A person is no better than an animal because everything is vanity. It's a pasuk from Koheles. But the point is, a person is not that great. So what are you praising him to the sky? Like, oh, if all the skies would be parchment, we wouldn't be able to write the mind of the king. He's a human being just like anybody else. How could you say on people that nobody could write down their heart? I mean, this praise, by the way, is in the Akdamas. It's said about Hashem, right? The Akdamas that we say on Shavuos, it borrows the same lashon. You know, if all the seas would be ink and all the skies would be parchment, it's talking about Hashem over there. But here the Gemara says it's not a person. So what's the pshat? Okay. The Shemaim Larum, it says Shemaim to the heights. Hapirish Masha b'Shemaim Mimal, whatever's in the heavens above us, which is, trillions of miles above us. The Eretz L'Oimek, and the earth below us. Masha Tachas L'Oretz, what's under the earth. K'masha Kasef Agra, b'Pirish L'Mishlei, the Gra on his commentary on Mishlei. So how could you compare that, which is like the whole universe, just to one president or king or whatever that he thinks about? Shehu das b'nei adam, that's just one person. So the Vayol Moshe brings the teretz. And he's going to say a different teretz here, but I'll just tell you what he says in Vayol Moshe. He says there that, it's a very interesting simon, because he's talking about whether we can advise someone to move to Eretz Yisrael and live under the state of Israel. So he says that the Maram Shik in the Tshuva speaks about the idea of danger. It says you're not allowed to go into a place of danger. You can't walk under a leaning wall or climb a rickety ladder, and you're not allowed to have something dangerous in your house, like a dangerous, ferocious dog, or a roof without a fence around it, or anything that could lead to danger. You're not allowed to have. So the Maram Shik says that applies to ruchniistic danger too. You're not allowed to go to a place that has a ruchniistic danger. So the state of Israel is a place like that. And then he goes on and he brings this Gemara where it says if all the seeds would be ink and they wouldn't be able to write the heart of a king. And he asks this question, and he says like this. He says, it's not talking about the king's like day-to-day activities. That's done by people. But he says it's talking about the king's plans for the future. If you have an absolute king, not a monarch like in the old days, or even today where you have a government that's elected, but the government's going to continue. One prime minister, let's say Bibi goes, another guy's going to come in and take over his place. So the government has a hemshech into the future. We don't know what their plans are. It's talking about their secret plans and ideas. The Israeli government has institutes to study. It's called Harediology. It's funny. They study the Haredi community, and they're trying to figure out how to infiltrate it and penetrate it and get them to stop being so, closed off from the world. Yeah. And this is in their planning. They have meetings. They talk about how we're going to implement the draft order, and the Rebbe was like a Navi. He's speaking in 67, or actually by Vayol Moshe, which is written even earlier, and he's speaking about this, and he's saying, look, you don't know. You're going to go to Eretz Yisrael in 1960, live there. Fine. Let's say it's good now. Let's say you think you have a good place to study. You have a community to live in. You have a shul, you have a rav, you have something, right? But who knows down the line what's going to happen to your kids? The Medina could be planning, and like they are now, they're planning this histaglut. It's like we're going to get the Haredim used to the army. First, we're going to get a few. Okay, it'll be a little tough at the beginning. They'll make a lot of protests, but we'll get a few guys to come Nachal Haredi. Eventually, we'll make it a regular thing. Now they have yeshivas that are officially Nachal Haredi yeshivas. People who go there end up in the Nachal Haredi. Some yeshivas do and some yeshivas don't, so you have a choice. But
it's different than the chesed.
Hesder is the religious Zionists,
right.
Yeshivas, that was their ideology. They wanted to serve in the army. Here, you have Haredim that don't want to serve in the army, but let's say the kid's not learning so well and the parents think he'll do better in this yeshiva, they put him in this yeshiva, and then that yeshiva, the rebbeim, they don't kidnap them, but the rebbeim, they say, I think it would be good for you if you go do something for the army,
Great opportunity.
You get education, you go on to have a good job afterwards. They're trying to. So basically, they keep on coming up with plans. Now they're coming up with education plans to get into the schools and to change the school curriculums. So you never know what they're going to do in the future. That's his teretz in Vayom Moshe. Okay, now let's see the teretz over here. V'nirli ko'es. I think now I'm going to say a new teretz. HaKavana. That was the amazing thing about the Rebbe. He could ask a question 10 times in 10 different places in the Sefer and say different terutzim every time. And they're all nugeya. They're all terutzim that have to do with the real world. So he says, V'nir li ko'es, HaKavana ki mimanav shach. He says like this, either way, Malchus Kedosh Shel Tzadikim, whether it's a good kingdom or a bad kingdom, there's always something amazing about it. Why? A good kingdom, like the kingdom of David HaMelech, Malchus Kedosh, a holy kingdom, Shel Tzadikim, the Oiskei Torah, people who learn Torah, Misnaheges Bahashpa Elokis. It's not able to just exist on its own. It has some kind of a Hashem's power is somehow influencing it. He says, Asher Hashem Yisbarach Mashpia Belibam, Kohen Yani HaMelchamas. Hashem guides their hearts. Like we say, Leiv Malachim Biyad Hashem. Hashem guides their hearts to go and even with the wars, David HaMelech, when the David started a war, he had to ask the Urim Tumim, right? He asked for Hashem's guidance everywhere. Navi told him what to do. All the things they do. Let's say it's the opposite type of kingdom. It's a kingdom of Rashaim who go against the Torah. The Kol Shekain Malchus Aminus, Kol Shekain the state of Israel, Rachmana litzlan, Misnaheges b'chol darcheim mehashpas hastamach mem Rachmana litzlan. That what are they influenced by? Not by Hashem's good providence, but by Hashem's bad providence, so to speak. By the samach mem, which is the nisayon that Hashem creates to tempt people. These two ways of influencing the kingdoms, right? We can't understand how powerful they are. So that's what it means when it says that we can't understand the king, even if we had all the ink and all the parchment, because we wouldn't understand. We understand the human being of the king, his mind, because he's a human being like us. But we don't understand the heavenly guidance that he's getting somehow, because Hashem is always controlling the kings. It's one of the principles of Bechira. Bechira, every human being has Bechira, it's free will, but the king doesn't have free will, because the king is in control of his country, the president, whatever. They're the ones who make these big life and death decisions, and Hashem doesn't leave that up to them. He manipulates it.
So this isn't only Yiddish kings.
Yeah, it's all kings. Okay. Move on, and therefore we understand we can't know the mind of the government because we can't know how it's being influenced. So therefore, let's go back to the Zionists. That the world of falsehood, meaning Jews who are convinced about Zionism, are supporting them. Rahman al-Islam. Haimam and Nasim Roish, they lift them up on a pedestal, they make them powerful. Because when Jews support Zionism, that makes it powerful, because they're going to give to it monetarily, and they're going to come there and support it. So the power of the Sitra Achra, the other side, the Samach Mem, they become more powerful. That we say, the Chazal say regarding Avodah Zarah, because people worship it, it has more power. It says that when people worship Avodah Zarah, not the Avodah Zarah is not really powerful, but the point is that it becomes like a nisayon to them. Just like the Gemara says that sometimes people would go and get healed by the priest of Avodah Zarah, right? So why did that happen? It's a nisayon from Hashem. Why did Hashem let the priest have that? I mean, the Gemara says it was chance, right? They just happened to come when they were about to get better. But still, why did Hashem let it happen? Obviously, it's a nisayon because they believed in it. Once you believe in it, and it says by the Navi Sheker also, it says that when a Navi says, go do idolatry, right? And the people, it says, you're not supposed to listen to him, but you're supposed to kill him. But it says, Ki menaseh Hashem Elokeichem eschem. Hashem is testing you. And Ibn Ezra says because they didn't kill the Navi like they were supposed to, they let him continue, so then he was able to make miraculous signs and wonders to make the people think that he's real. So because they believed in it, or they didn't oppose it enough, it became more powerful. Okay, Ayin ba Orach Chaim HaKadosh al Kasuv Lo Yiyeh Locha Elohim Acherim. Going back to that pasuk that we talked about before, Lo Yiyeh Locha, you should not have other gods before me. So all the Mefarshim Abada, what's this lashon of other gods? There are no other gods. So there's Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Oops, I think I only have one copy. So Orach Chaim HaKadosh on Shmois, on the Aseret HaDibros, he says, Oid Yirtze Loymar. Another pshat in this pasuk is Ki Kol Avodah Zarah Sheba Olam Ein Pu'ulas Ha'oved Po'elas Hadarga B'Nevad. That he says when non-Jews do worship an idol, it doesn't make the idol more powerful. La'asoisoi Elohim doesn't make it into a god. Ka'asher Ta'asena Pu'ulas Ish Yisrael. That doesn't compare to a Jewish person who believes in it. Ki Noisen Koyach Gadol B'Bchinas Hara. That the Jewish person believing in the idol makes it more powerful. It gives the B'chinas Hara, the side of evil, a more power. The Koyf Chas V'Shalom B'chinas HaMe'ula. And it makes it like more powerful than the good side. Lifnei B'chinas Hara. Rahman al-Itzlan. It comes out in halacha that you know the halacha is if a guy worships an idol, let's say a statue, right? So that guy can be mevatel the statue. Means he can say, I'm not believing in this anymore. It has no power. I believe in Hashem now, right? And now that idol becomes mutter to use. If it was made of gold or something, you can now take the gold and melt it down and sell it and use it. Because the guy was mevatel, it's no longer an idol. But a Jew who has an idol, what?
So also brings down a Shulchan Aruch that Avodah Zarah is not batal b'shishim, like even batal b'ruvim.
Yeah, it's true. That's as long as it's Avodah Zarah. But if the guy who believed in it comes and says, "I'm changing my mind," yeah. So, but by a Jew, you can't do that. Avodah Zarah shel Yisrael ein la bittul. So if a Jew believes in an idol and then he changes his mind, it doesn't help. It's still an idol. So somehow the Jewish belief in an idol is more powerful. And we see that sometimes you have these heretical movements, not just Zionism, but other ones too, that Jews end up being, unfortunately, like the forefront of it. You know? Anyway, when Jews go off, they really go off. That's what it is. Okay, so that's one pshat of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. And the second pshat is, Oid Yirtze, another pshat, Ki be'emtsos ha'oved hu mamtzi havaya acher. That by doing this worship of the idol, he creates something new. Shehi Elohim, is like a god. Mashaloi haya kain kodim, that wasn't there before. His belief in it somehow made it true. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. In the case of Zionism, I don't understand it in the case of an idol, because an idol is just a supernatural thing that people believe in. So why does it become true just because they believe in it? Maybe because of the Nisayan. But when the rebbe is going to tell this to Zionism, it makes a lot of sense, because when people believe in something, they make it true with their belief, because they're believing so strong in that they're going to go out and get themselves killed for it and fight for it and give to it and risk everything for it. So that's Zionism. Let's see it inside now. In the
other positions to make aliyah.
What?
Sell everything they own to make aliyah.
Yeah. Ayin Orach Chaim HaKadosh al Kasiv Lo Yiyeh L'Cholim Acherim Shepehu Osoi, with his act Noisin Koyach B'Avodah Zarah, he gives power to it. V'Havaya Shelcha Ta'asenu Elohim, his thoughts make it into a god. Ayin Sham. V'Ef Shalanu Ladas Chas V'Shalom Ad Kama Yiyah HaYisgaber. So therefore, because all these people are believing in Zionism, we don't know how far Zionism is going to go. it could even go further now. Like first they had the war in 67, everyone was all excited about it. Now people are believing in it more, and that's like a chain reaction. Now the Zionism is going to get more powerful. Who knows, right? Rebbe is saying, I have to tell you in advance in case it happens. V'hine mevur b'kasuv. He says we find in the pasuk in Psukim u'v'direi Chazal she'hamelech haMashiach yimloich al kol ha'olam kuloi. When Mashiach comes, he's going to rule over the whole world. What does that mean? The whole world's not Jewish, so what is he ruling over them? But it means that they're going to all pay tribute to him. In the Psukim in Yeshaya, when it talks about Mashiach, and Yud Aleph, it talks about that, everybody will be subservient to him. And also in the other Psukim in Yeshaya, in Perikal Beis, it says all the nations will come to Yerushalayim, and they'll come and they'll ask Mashiach for answers to their questions. So let's come, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Soyer Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. So Mashiach will be controlling the world. Right? We say in Rosh Hashanah davening, V'noida ki hema medami matzmam. So now the Zionists want to compare themselves with Inyani haGeula. They try to also pretend to be a substitute for the Geula. Afra lepumayu, dust to their mouths. So what do they say? They say the state of Israel is the Aschalta de Geula, it's the Reishi Semichas Geula Seinu, it's the beginning of the Geula. So they really say that. So V'oisim kama pu'ulois, they do many actions V'dimyonis l'damos l'nyanim shel Mashiach, to compare themselves to Mashiach. They do many things. There was an effort that they made once to start the Sanhedrin again in the time the Medina started. They try to do stuff that's gonna compare them to Mashiach. There's even people who want to build the base of Mikdash now, right? There's the Machon and Mikdash and a bunch of other places in Yerushalayim. They have an Aron and they have Kalim and they have it already. Umi Yuchal Leda. And even after the 6-Day War, I don't know if the Rebbe heard the story, but Goren, the chief rabbi of the army, wanted to blow up the mosque, right? He wanted to blow up the mosque, and Moshe Dayan didn't let him. But, yeah. Umi Yuchal Leda, I think that's what the story was. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe he just wanted to build a shul on the Har Bayis. Umi Yuchal Leda ad kama yisavu taiva lilchaim v'limshal. Who knows how much they're going to have a taiva to continue their wars and continue their power. Kikain hu b'teva levavam. That's the nature of them, of their hearts. Asher kravos yechpatzun, that they want war. They're hungry for war. K'masha amru Chazal. V'yakava la'Hashem yisborach. So I hope to Hashem sheyishmor amoy b'nei Yisrael. He should protect his people, the Jewish people. Shaloi lahaviam l'nisyonis chamurim yoiser kol kach. That he shouldn't allow them to have such difficult trials. Aval mi yodea ad kama ha'avon goyim. But who knows how much sin will cause and how much trials there will be. V'hechreach l'kabel alav ol malchus shamayim shlema. So therefore, every yid today has to accept upon himself the yoke of Shemayim completely. And he has to make himself strong in his mind, and he has to think, even if the Zionists will be more successful in the future, even if they have real miracles, like he said many times in this sefer, that the miracles of 67 were not miracles. They were just hatzlacha gedola, but not real nisim. But even if it comes a time when the Zionists do have real nisim, she'ein l'shayr, that we can't even imagine now, lo yispayal leiv hamamin b'Hashem yisbarach u'v'toyraseh hakdosha. A yid who believes in Hashem and His Torah should not be impressed. Af ziz kolshu, he shouldn't change his position even one iota. Ki yediyah brurahu shal yidei minim b'koifrim rachman litzlan lo tava yeshua Yisrael. That we know for sure that no good can come out of these heretics. Ve'amamin lo yachish, that someone who believes in Hashem should not attempt to force the geula to come or hurry things along. Even if something happens that you can't understand at the moment, you have to believe that whatever it is, it can't be good for the Jewish people if it came from them. These are clear things that no one could doubt. I just want to point out on this siman, the Rebbe mentioned a couple times that it's possible the Zionists will rule over more countries and rule over the whole world. So there's an interesting sefer that we once discussed here when I was learning, before you came. We learned this sefer called Ma'ana Chacham. Pass the page over here. Ma'ana Chacham is written by Yoel Kahan, Zchrono Livracha. He was a Chabad Rav, Magid Shir, and he tries to refute Vayol Moshe without refuting it. He tries to twist it to say what he wants it to say. Basically, his point is that, yes, it's true, the Rebbe said that Zionism is kfira. But he explains the kfira totally differently. He says the kfira is that we believe, the Shalosh Shvuos teaches, that there won't be a geula without Mashiach. Okay? We're waiting for Mashiach. Chakim anachnu lach. We're waiting for Mashiach. Achakalei v'chol yom shi'avai. So we're on Mashiach now. So therefore, no geula can happen without Mashiach. Oh, so Ibazoi, what is the Zionist state? So he says, Al Korchach, because we believe there can't be a geula without Mashiach, the Zionist state has no connection to geula. Okay? So therefore, his next step is, therefore we can be part of it. We can support the state. Why? Because if the state has no shaykhs to geula, then what's wrong with it? That's his point. And I'm encapsulating it into one sentence, but that's the start of his point. So look what he says here. He says, "Uma sheyesh tipshim." There's some foolish people. She'oimrim shal yidei medina nasa be'emes cheiris mishibud malchus. He says the Medina represents a true freedom from the nations of the world, which Chazal say, right? There's ein bein ha'olam hazeh l'moisa Mashiach el shibud malchus bilvad. There's nothing between now and the time of Mashiach except that now we're under the nations, and then we won't be under the nations. So these people say, no, but look, the Zionists are free. There's an independent state. So now, if you're living in Israel, you're living you're not living under the Malchus.
Does that pasuk mean that we're not allowed to have?
So that's the point. Rabbi Yoel Kahan understood the pasuk to mean it's not a pasuk; it's a chazal. He understood the chazal to mean that it won't happen. It just won't. So if it happens, al korchach, it's not really freedom. But the real pshat is not that it won't happen, but that it's not supposed to happen. You understand? That's the point I'm coming to. He understood that it just won't happen. So that comes out from that the state of Israel must be okay because it's not happening. You close your eyes and say that's not happening. It says, "Mashiyesh tipshim." There's some foolish people. She'oimrim shalidei medina nasis be'emes cheiris mishibud malchus. Ela sha'cheris hu mikoyach hasitra achra. They just say, okay, the Satmar Rebbe said the Medina is being controlled by the sitra achra, but it's still freedom, still freedom. Mashenasna HaKadosh Baruch Hu koyach la sitra achra bichdei l'nasos es ha'adam. He's doing it to test us. Sounds familiar, right? That's exactly what the Rebbe has been saying here. He calls that foolishness. Okay, so he says, "Kvar biyarnu le'el shedvar melu hem kfira mamash." He says that's kfira. Adrav, if you say that, you're kafir. Why? The inyan hanisyonis hu davka benogei the divrei the davar shemishamish lo hechacha al inyan shu hepech toras emes. A nisyon means only when something happens that could prove the Torah wrong, and you just have to, still believe after that nisyon. U'kemoy navi hasheker. Like when a false prophet comes, and he tells you to transgress the Torah, that sometimes Hashem will give him the power to make a miracle, and he might even stop the sun in the middle of the sky. That's a proof. The Navi will use that as a proof to prove his prophecy in idols or whatever. Chas v'shalom. V'atam al masha Kodesh Baruch Hu noisin koyach l'navi hasheker. Why does Hashem give the power to this navi? Sitra achra. Lasois oisim moifis sheyuchal lahavi hoichachnu nivuasai mefurish b'kasuv shatam lezehu ki minasta Hashem lokechem eslam. Hashem tests you. Okay. But he says, but Mashenka, when it comes to look at the next paragraph. That's only when it's a proof. When the thing that's going to happen itself is against the Torah, the Torah tells us certain thing will not happen, then that can't happen. The Torah says there won't be a geula before Mashiach. There won't be a geula before Mashiach. The state of Israel, it's not a geula. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay? And then he says, since the Torah says there won't be freedom from galus before Mashiach, the state of Israel does not provide us with freedom. It's just like a Jewish council, the four lands in Poland. It's just like something that the Jews have to administer their own affairs, but they're not really free from the countries of the world. Kanal Baruch, that's what he explained in the rest of the Sefer. So he's not representing correctly what the Rebbe says, because according to this, it's mutter to have a medina as long as it's not going to have power, and he claims the current state doesn't have complete power.
Every single person I ever heard who refuted the Satmar Rebbe always misquoted.
Exactly. Okay, now look what he quotes though. He quotes from the Rebbe, and he's bothered by this. The quote that we just read. Even though the Zionists had a lot of success, they still didn't reach the level of Nebuchadnezzar and Paroi. They didn't get to that stage all at once. They went slowly. So the Rebbe says, I'm afraid, maybe the Zionists will have more success in the future, and they'll be more powerful in the future. So he says, he says it could be they might reach the stage of controlling the whole world. Imagine that, the Zionists controlling the whole world.
That's what people say.
Even now, you know what, they have this thing now that American Jews should be allowed to vote. Some people say, get citizenship, it doesn't cost anything, just become an Israeli citizen, and you could vote, and you could be part of the state of Israel from here. So they're already being moilach hakol oil kulei a little bit. They're telling us we're part of them. Anyway, next page. The same simon that says there, Melech HaMashiach yimloich al kol ha'olam kuloi, v'noida ki heim medam imatmam l'nyani haGeula, after the pumayu, v'oisim kam v'pulos v'dimyonis v'damas l'nyanim shel Mashiach. The Zionists want to compare themselves to Mashiach. Umi yuchal leda, who can know ad kama ha'ovan gorim, basically. He says how much sin will cause. I hope that Hashem won't bring the nisayon. He says, who knows, maybe he will.
That's the difference between Mashiach running Yimloch Kol Olam Kulo versus, how's that not a Avodah Zarah?
No, it doesn't mean like he's ruling like Hashem. It means he's a king that has power. He'll be on Eretz Yisrael, right, on the Jewish people, but the non-Jews will have to pay tribute to him. He'll be like the most powerful, today we have superpowers. Who basically
Maod Chabad Yeshiva,
call the shots.
The Rebbe runs the world.
Yeah. Anyway, so V'gam me'lashon zeh, it has to be practically true. You can't just say something about the Rebbe that just does this and then expect people to believe it. Anyway, v'gam me'lashon zeh muchach she'efshar liyos nisayin gadol kazeh. It could happen someday that such a great trial will happen. Ad she'imluchu al kol olam kulay dugum bas melech Mashiach. V'tamua. So he asks, Rabbi Kahan asks, imluchu al kol olam kulay. If the Zionists end up dominating the world, hari bevadai shelo yiyeh oz shibun malchius, there won't be any subjugation to the nations. To the mi'iyu mishubadim, who are they going to be subjugated to? Mikivan shehem hamolchim al kol ha'olam kuloi. They're going to control the world. How could it be that the Satmar Rebbe would consider a possibility that the Zionists will be so powerful there won't be any Shiva Malchus? He says it must be he doesn't want to disagree with the Rebbe, so he just said, nah, the Rebbe didn't mean what he said. Could be that the Rebbe just didn't mean it. He didn't mean there could be such a thing. To believe that such a thing could happen is kfir. And why did he say it? So he says he just wrote it. He just wants to give people encouragement, not to be impressed with the Zionists' success. He says even if it would be possible, it won't happen. Yeah, so that's what he does with the Rebbe. Now, but obviously, the answer to him is that's not pshat. The Rebbe didn't mean that at all. He meant exactly what he says. He meant that Zionism could be matzliach theoretically, and they could rule over the whole world. Because the fact that we say there won't be a cheres from Shiva Malchus, that's a rule that we have to keep. That's not like a prophecy that will happen and that won't happen. Judaism doesn't have these things like we believe this will never happen, or we believe this will happen at this exact time. We believe in Mashiach and Tchias Mason, but that we don't have a time frame for it. There's not going to become, you know how you have these cults that have like a thing on a certain day, certain things going to happen, and then 2012. And then they all go up in the tree and they wait for the end of the world. Judaism doesn't have such a thing, right? We don't have a thing at a certain day, a certain thing is going to happen. No. There's rules, there's halacha, there's things that tell us what to do. So that's what this is. When the Rebbe talks about Zionism, he's saying, yeah, we're not allowed to be free from Shiva Malchus before Mashiach. Not that we just won't. We could if we want. We have free will. There could be a Zionism in the Medina that goes against the laws of the Torah, but it doesn't mean that we should follow it. If it does, so this is we spoke about this when we did this sefer. If you look back in the shiurim on the Ma'aneh Chacham, but this is what he does with this simon. He says, nah, the Rebbe didn't mean what he said. Obviously, the Rebbe did mean what he said. So, yeah, I'll stop here.